Hello there, everyone, whoever might be there. That moment of uncertainty. You come onto YouTube and you go, is there really anybody there? And you really don't know for several minutes. And so you have to kind of make up a bunch of senseless blabber for about the first, like 1 minute or 2 minutes that you're on here. And so that's what I'm doing. There's a person. Wow. I'm not talking to myself anymore. Okay. So, hello, everybody. And here we are yet again. And we're going to talk tonight about the approaching new moon, also the concept of fear. And plus, I have some other things that I want to share with everyone. First of all, if you can, I think everybody can hear me okay. I see my microphone thing moving below. If you want to, while we're waiting for maybe like 6, 7, 8 people to get here, if you're wanting to ask some general astrological related questions, not about your own horoscope, then feel free to do so over in the chat window. Hello, Tanita Ray. Thank you for letting me know the sound is good. I never know when I first come on. When I first come on, sometimes it's just this thing of going, am I talking to a brick wall? Or am I looking like a Godzilla movie where my mouth's moving but no sound is coming out, right? So anybody with any general astrological related questions before we get going on things? Because I don't want to get into the nitty gritty really until there's like a couple more people here. So I don't have to keep repeating myself over and over again. So the beginning of these little gatherings that we have here on YouTube are really good for any questions and answers that you might have, or rather questions that you might have. I think I'm supposed to give the answers perhaps. Anyway, feel free to ask away if you want to do so. And I will do my best to endeavor to answer whatever your questions may be over in the chat window. There we go. Saturn, Sati right now. I'm sorry you're having that. You know what you might find, Cybercombs? You might find that in your horoscope, it may be less of an issue of Saturn, and it may be more of an issue of the dasha that you're in. And you may also find that Saturn, wherever it's transiting in your horoscope, may have like weak Ashtaka Varga, and that might be what's causing the problem right now. But I wouldn't really be able to help you fully with that unless I were to look at your horoscope, because it's kind of difficult to do that otherwise. But that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. Not me looking at your horoscope, but the fact that I am offering sliding scale rates through my website for anybody who may be interested in scheduling a consultation with me. You can do so through my website. There are suggested fees that are listed there on the site. But if you're not able to pay the suggested fee, you can always send me over an email and we'll see if we can find a way to set something up and accommodate you through the website. And it truly is sliding scale. So take advantage of it, Cybercombs, if you're able to. How to apply nakshatras for outer planets like Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. What are their traits? Well, a good way to understand the energies of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto is to think of Uranus as Brahma, think of Neptune as Vishnu, and think of Pluto as Shiva. If you understand those three deities, you'll be able to figure out a lot about the outer planets. And so then you just think of those three deities interacting with the flow of a particular nakshatra, and it'll probably begin to make a lot more sense to you. Third time around with Sati. Wow, that's pretty intense. So I do feel where you're coming from there. Okay, so let's talk about the new moon. Got a really what's this word for it? Foggy new moon that's coming up on the 23rd of February. And I know everybody's going to go, oh, well, that's because Mercury's retrograde. Mercury, that problem child that we like to use as the cosmic scapegoat and just heap tons and tons and tons of blame upon Mercury for everything that goes wrong in the world, or everything that could potentially go wrong in the world, right? Just all dump it all on Mercury. That's a burden. That's a heavy burden to carry, to have the entire responsibility for everything that goes wrong in the world dumped on you. And I think Saturn might be behind that plot, right? Because he usually has everything dumped on him, except when Mercury's retrograde, and then Mercury gets it all dumped on him instead. But you know what? Quite often, people misunderstand Mercury retrograde, because when Mercury is retrograde, it gets really strong chestabala, which means that Mercury is really strong, like phenomenally strong when that happens. And so, whereas we like to think of Mercury as being responsible for all the problems, if we kind of look beneath the surface, we can kind of understand that there's not really any way that that could potentially happen, being as how Mercury is really strong. Because what's happening when Mercury is retrograde is it's in front of the sun, as a friend of mine was recently pointing out in one of his videos, and I'm going to share the same concept. I mean, it's just, yeah, I'm not saying that I didn't know this, because I did know this, I just never shared it really. So is the fact that Mercury is moving in front of the sun, and as it's stationing and then beginning to retrograde, it's taking all the rays of the sun are shining on it and exuding that energy on Mercury very heavily on the planet. So perhaps the things that are going on Mercury retrograde wise are because Mercury is really strong and powerful at that time, rather than Mercury being not powerful or weak. Okay, it's just with Mercury retrograde, you're meant to intuit your processes. So that being the case, all three of these planets are in Shatabishak Nakshatra. Okay, now Shatabishak Nakshatra, interestingly enough, is commonly associated with Varuna. And Varuna is like the Vedic equivalent of Neptune, the god Neptune, for those who aren't familiar. But, somewhat different. And with Varuna, he's quite often associated with the concept of cosmic law, right? With the concept of making us go through some certain things so that we rectify our path, right? So that we learn through the confusion. But here's something that's really interesting. In the Antayatariya Brahmana, Varuna is not listed as the deity that's connected to Shatabishak Nakshatra. Instead, Indra is listed, right? And whenever Indra is listed in connection with the nakshatra, one of the things that that's referring to is the fact that we need to perceive things correctly, right? So Indra was given the status of king of the gods because he conquered his senses. When we conquer our senses, what happens? We see things as they truly are. When we're caught up in the confusion, well, we don't see things as they truly are. And there's an energy connected with this new moon of somehow feeling like you have to amplify everything to get things done, right? You've been dealing with something that hasn't, really been gaining the momentum that you want it to gain. Part of that is also caused by the fact that Jupiter's inching closer to a conjunction with Pluto. And so as things are not moving forward as you might have desired, there's this boost inside of you that goes, right, I'm going to do something to make this happen because I can do this and it's my job and I have to make it happen. So I'm going to go do it. And you strategize and you think your way through it and you adjust your plans along the way and you keep strategizing and coming up with all these different ideas. But during that period of time, you shut out your intuition, right? You shut out your intuition and you miss something that could really help you, right? So it may be during this particular new moon cycle that you find yourself in somewhat of a confusing set of circumstances because you felt like you were taking the right steps and you felt like you were doing the right thing and you were definitely acting from the right place. Your intent was correct, but somehow you end up in a bit of a conundrum, right? But if you recognize in the midst of that conundrum that what you're needing to do is use your intuition more rather than trying to intellectualize a plan out of it, things will likely begin to flow better at that particular moment in time. And what you need to avoid doing, right, is you need to avoid losing your confidence simply because you're facing a difficult set of circumstances. I'm seeing a question or two over here, but I want to remind everybody, all readings, all consultations are presently being offered on a sliding scale basis. I really want to support this model going forward, but it has to become a model that works, right? So the idea is on my website for each of the readings, there are 3 suggested prices, okay? And they cover a wide range. So if one fee isn't affordable to you, you can pay the other one. And when you schedule and make it to my payment page, it'll be listed there as well. If those fees don't work for you and you're really sincerely in need of a consultation, please reach out to me. We can likely arrange something that will work out for you. In addition to that, all of my webinar courses are being offered in the same exact manner on a sliding scale basis. At this particular point, I have enough registrations on all of my courses to really kind of feel like, well, you know, my time is paid for, okay, so to speak. So I want to open it up to sincere students who really want to learn. And again, there are fees listed on the course pages. The courses are now being listed by module of the course. So there will be one module posted for registration. Then when that module is nearing completion, the next module will be posted for registration. And if you register for the module of the course, you can do so on a sliding scale basis. And if the fees that are there don't suit your budget, again, feel free to reach out to me. Don't feel like, oh, well, I can't really afford that much and he'll be perceiving it as an insult, because I won't, right? I'm here to really try to help to accommodate people and to support the learning processes of everybody. So just briefly, because I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time with this. So what courses do I have available? Well, starting on the 1st of March is a jaimini webinar course. This is level 2 of jaimini, but if you haven't taken level 1, you don't really need to worry about it. Most of the material that was in level 1 were certain planetary combinations that created certain things. And if you register for level 2 of jaimini for a small donation that's self-initiated, in other words, whatever feels comfortable for you, for that small donation, I'll give you the jaimini level 1 video course. Now, you're probably looking at me going, he's not really doing this, is he? Yes, I am. Okay, all this stuff I'm really doing, okay? In addition to that, starting on the 21st of March will be the first module of the Nakshatra technique webinar course. So if you'd like to register for that one, it's the same thing. It's all sliding scale. If you can't afford the fee, reach out to me. We'll try to figure out a fee that's affordable for you, okay? And then in June, there's a course on the Vargas that's starting. Same deal, you can register for module 1 of that. And in July, there's a Varshafala course that's starting, and it's the same deal on that. So if you're interested in any of those or all of those, just you can either visit the page or reach out to me personally. So somebody said, can Mercury be combust when it's retrograde? Well, Mercury will be joined the sun at that time, but when it's combust is when it's technically combust is being close to the sun. But when it has the combust effect, we'll use my little stone as a teaching tool. When it has the combustion effect, so here's the sun, Mercury is behind the sun, and here's the earth. And since Mercury is behind the sun and conjuncting the sun, its rays can't get to the earth, which is what creates the disruption there. Okay? So here's the other thing I wanted to talk to everybody about, okay, which is hype. Let's talk about hype, which goes on quite a lot these days and spreads very easily through the media. And I think it's the responsibility of myself and certain other people to kind of come on and try to use media to counter that hype, because we don't need the hype, really. So what am I talking about? Well, everything. People are getting freaked out about government in the world, right? On a certain level, if you focus on yourself, you find miraculously things end up working out okay. Focus on yourself and those who are around you. It's like the old saying, if you think globally but act locally, things really do seem to work out better. The other thing is this coronavirus thing, which, interestingly enough, if you do the research, you'll discover that more people in recent years have actually died from the flu than have died from this coronavirus thing. So what's the difference? Well, there's a couple of different things. Number one is that China is responsible for a huge part of the world's gross domestic product. So when something big happens in China like that, then it impacts the rest of the world at this particular moment in time. So that's part of the reason, that things are getting hyped up more. But in addition to that, we live in an age of social media where something can be taken and even more rapidly than this, coronavirus thing is spreading, hype can spread and fear can spread, right? And, sure, one doesn't like to think this way, but it's quite an easy way to control the market and to make the market fluctuate and make it work to the advantage of people who might have a lot of money to invest in the market and can then take advantage of that. So, that's one theory. None of us really knows absolutely positively if it's true. But one thing you will find out is true if you kind of go do the research is you'll discover that really only about, I think at this point, around 1,500 people have died from this coronavirus. So that's much less than people who have died from the flu in recent years. So I think we need to be careful how much we spread fear these days, right? Fear is good because it brings your attention to something. But the moment it brings your attention to it, you're meant to kind of notice that fear. And even if that fear is connected to a reality, what good does it do to stay rooted in fear? It's not going to do you any good, really, to stay rooted in fear. You have to kind of counter that by staying rooted in your own strength and facing the fear. Let that fear kind of I'm not going to quote it exactly. I think there's a saying from a science fiction novel about facing that fear and letting it move over you and pass through you, because then the only thing that's going to be left after that fear passes over you is you, right? And then you're still there. And you'll discover, even though that may have been challenging, the fear wore as scary of a mask as I chose to see it wearing. So we need to do a lot of work these days to counter the fear that's going on in the world. I see somebody's asking, how is it going to affect the Scorpio native? I think you probably mean the new moon. It's not really so simple to say on an accurate level based on somebody having one planet how it's going to impact them. It may have something to do with your career and feeling inspired and confused about which direction to go. But I mean, that's just speculation because I don't have your full horoscope. But on that particular level, as I was saying before, you can schedule an astrological service with me on a sliding scale basis. And if the fees that are on the site are not affordable to you, you can please also feel free to reach out to me and we'll see if we can find a way of accommodating your needs. Okay. And also the webinar courses are on the same basis, and I'm putting those in the chat window over here too. So if anybody has any specific questions about anything we've spoken about here, I would love to hear from you over in the chat window. I wanted to also see where everybody's at with this current global crisis with coronavirus, how people are feeling about what's going on in their own neck of the woods. Feel free to chime in over here and we'll share some of your responses while I have a drink of water. I can't talk and drink water at the same time. So remember, you don't have to be shy. You can type all sorts of things over there in the chat window, whatever might be popping into your mind. Even if it's just a bunch of foggy gibberish that's popping into your mind, please feel free to share it over there. Okay? Any questions you might have about nakshatras or the approaching Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, things along those lines, right? Those are all things you can ask. Don't know who to trust to know more about the coronavirus. Well, so here's the thing. A lot of things I've been seeing is people sharing information from news sources that they think are reputable sources, but are really like tabloid journals. And when it comes down to media, you have to recognize that media is always down to one purpose, which is to sell media. Okay, so if a story, even if the story is true, they're going to want to report that story if it draws a lot of attention to their channel, their media channel, like their network or their newspaper, right? So you always have to, it's always helpful to get your news from several different sources and then try to read between the lines and get an idea of what is actually going on, right? And so if you are, I can't name certain like media sources online, but there are some media sources that are not as reputable, and I've been seeing a lot of things being shared from them. So always check your sources, see where you're getting your news from. Okay, so here's the thing. Number one, I'm not here to give a lot of answers about people's personal horoscopes. I am, really, really, really reaching out to those of you who are in need and going, hey, I'm willing to accommodate you for a fee that you can discuss. So just contact me through my site, sliding scale basis. We can set something up. Otherwise, I'm just making vast speculation about your horoscope just based on your ascendant. And that's why I don't like doing horoscopes for all the ascendants and stuff like that, because I think that you get into a position where some of it is true, but at the same time, some of the rest of it isn't. And so then the person goes, oh, well, that came true, but the rest of it didn't come true. So I don't know how accurate that person is. And an astrologer can only be as accurate as the information he has in front of him. Okay. So let's see some of the other things we've got. Somebody saying man-made U.S. patent for coronavirus looked up, bioweapon, money to be made in year of the metal rat. Well, a lot of that could be true, and that's the whole thing. I think the main thing we have to look at is not getting caught up in the fear, whatever that fear might be. If that fear is, that it's being used as a bioweapon, don't give in to that either. The more you give in to fear of the people who want to instill fear, is the more you're giving them what they want. If you do the opposite, then they can't control you. Okay. Have I seen Sati period being one of great inner outer growth? It can be dependent upon the state of the moon, but at the same time, sometimes Sati gets made to be more than it actually really is. So a lot of it depends upon a Shtaka Varga score, right? So Diana Zuby, if you want to reach out to me, I'm sure you would be able to afford a donation. I can't read your horoscope here on the site because, again, you're giving me like just a little bit of information, and it wouldn't be fair to everybody else that's here, right? But I do understand where you're coming from, and I do know I understand that you're a student, but even if you just reach out to me, I'm sure we can find a way to accommodate your needs. And it's not about being a money head, it's about doing accurate astrology. But I can't look at your chart for free because I have bills I have to pay and expenses I incur. So, but I am willing to accommodate pretty much what people are able to do, because that's why I'm offering it this way. Okay. The young, old, and the ill are the ones which are vulnerable, though most no fear. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's see what else we hear. I share same videos as you about media manipulation on a personal level. I see many people have accidents, burns, floods, some even died. Yep. It's the thing is sorry, this is going to sound very dry, and I don't mean for it to sound dry. People die every day. What's happening on the planet right now is, even if it's man-made, if this is man-made and patented, it's still a natural process. Because even if it's something that we create, that somebody's creating to do population control or media manipulation, whatever, it's still something that's naturally happening on the planet through interaction of the consciousnesses that are there. So again, the best way to deal with that is to go, okay, best thing for me to do is to just keep my focus on myself and the people closest to me, deal with that. And from there, it'll spread. Like positive things will spread rather than a virus. What are the aspects of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto? I think you're probably asking that in connection with Vedic astrology. You just look at the Tajika aspects. A 30-degree aspect is actually one of the most powerful ones, but you need to look at the planets that they're connecting to, and then you have to read the outer planets through the nodal axis, because that's the way they tend to transmit their energies, right? It's a bit complicated. Okay. Okay. It's not a simple manner of just kind of saying something broadly on that particular concept based upon Nichabanga Raja Yoga. Okay. Are there positive aspects of enemy planet conjunctions? Depends. Okay. So there's something called the Lajatati Avastas, right? And with the Lajatati Avastas, if you have a planet joined its enemy, the enemy starves that planet. But if that's Jupiter that's getting starved, then Jupiter is going to delight that other planet, right? So especially when Jupiter's like involved in a conjunction, sorry, you're asking conjunctions, and Jupiter's involved in a conjunction with Mercury or Venus, then Jupiter will get starved, but it also delights Mercury and Venus. Okay. And so Mercury and Venus get a bit of a boost whilst Jupiter gets starved. Okay, so let's see if anybody else has any questions. So just a reminder that so somebody's asking another question. I'll get to that here in a moment. Just a reminder that all of my consultations are presently being offered on a sliding scale basis. They're listed with suggested prices on the site. If those suggested prices are out of your range, please feel free to reach out and we'll see if we can work something out. I just put the link there. It's the same deal with my webinar courses, and we have a jaimini course that starts next about 10 days. It's on the 1st, right? And then we have a Nakshatra technique course that starts on the 21st as well. And a course on the Vargas that starts in June. And a course on Varshafala that starts in July. If you're interested in any of those courses, you can register for them on a per module basis. And again, if the fee is out of your range, reach out. We'll see what we can work out. Okay.